Guys and girls, and welcome to episode 68 of the FReality Podcast. This is a weekly VR, AR, and MR talk show that is live streamed every Saturday on Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitch. You can tune into the show live at 7 p.m. in Europe, 6 p.m. in the UK, and 12 midday in Central US. You can also check out the audio version, which is available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and on Anchor. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave us a review on iTunes, because that would really help us out. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback during the show, please put them in the chat. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can. But first up, I want to wish all of those people watching us live in the chat right now, and the audio listeners, and those watching this episode on catch-up, a very Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you all, and thank you for joining us. I hope you're all having a lovely holiday season. Now, let me introduce you to the team. First up, this week, you might want to grab your shanks, as in prison, this riot might break out at any moment. The notorious Nathy has entered the prison boss and is taking out Rowdy as the top dog. So welcome, Nathy.
Yeah, thank you.
How you doing?
After a year of this game coming out, I'm finally stepping into the arena to dethrone Rowdy. You know, I've been planning to do this for such a long time. And, you know, I have been using my spoon for a year to, you know, dig into the prison. Like usually people try to get out of it, but I was trying to get into the prison to actually become, you know, you need to do something naughty before you get into the prison. In my case, I didn't want to do that. So I just dig myself into the prison.
Right. And now obviously Rowdy's not here. And you've taken him out. You've eliminated him.
I was going to say, for our audio listeners, they can't see that we've basically got an RIP signal over Rowdy's face, you know, and he's MIA. Yeah. What'd you do to him?
So prayers to Rowdy in the chat, please.
Yeah.
Rip.
Yeah, we had a fight, you know, in the middle of the jail, and no,
it didn't end well.
No, I used my spoon to fight him.
You brought a spoon to a knife fight.
Yeah.
No. For all of you that are worried about Rowdy, he is fine. He just can't join us on this week's show, but he will be back next week, so don't worry about that. If you're missing him, let us know in the chat. We'd love to know. But next up, this guy's a sure bet. You can always count on him when the chips are down. He's got your back. He thrives on being alive, of course. It's ZimTalk5. How are you, man? You all right?
I'm wonderful, and you do such a good job. You're practically a rap artist these days with those intros. I love them. They're really good. No, I'm good. I've had a very vexing day filled with wonderful issue and things like that. I won't go into detail with it, but yeah, tough day.
It's hit and miss whether you were going to make the show or not, right?
Incredibly close. Yeah, I was basically 7 hours on a production issue call. One of my day-to-day responsibilities is looking after 2 call centers, and both of them were offline today, so it wasn't a good thing. Wow. But aside from that, week's been good. dip my toes into a few different things, and keen to talk about something that I think you guys don't know about. So.
Awesome. Well, looking forward to that. I'm so glad that you could make it, because if it was me and Nathy running this thing, it would have been a disaster. I promise you all that in the chat now, and you probably would have only been watching this on one platform, because we have no idea how Restream works. So Thank you very much for holding this together, Zim. We really appreciate it, and I'm sure you do in the chat as well. So let him know how much you appreciate that. Last but by no means least, myself, the host of the show, Mike from Virtual Reality Oasis. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the news on Starchild coming to PSVR. We're going to be talking about some game releases to keep an eye on over the next week to keep you busy over the Christmas holiday. We're going to be talking about Oculus Deep Focus. We discuss how the future of VR is blurry and why that's a good thing. And then finally, if we've got time, hopefully this week's show, we can talk about Neurable motion analysis. We talk about tech that's being combined with VR and eye tracking that allows you to control VR experiences with your mind alone. We dropped this one from last week's show because we had a jam-packed show, but hopefully we can get it in this week's show. So I hope you guys and girls stick around for the end and enjoy that one. But first up, let's find out what everyone's been up to and their highlight of the week. And of course, let's kick it over to Nathy first to see if he's been doing anything else other than obviously dethroning the prison boss.
Well, my highlight was definitely not Prison Boss VR.
Okay.
No, I have to say, like, we were always making fun out of Rowdy, but this game is actually legit, like, a good title. It's fun to play. It's not that bad. And I do understand why he made like 200 episodes about this this game. So. Yeah,
he had a longer running series than the actual TV series Prison Break did.
I'm just thinking about Rowdy re-listening back to this podcast and just grinning his way through as we just keep jabbing him in the side with a little sharpened spoon.
That's what we do on the show. We just always give a few digs for people that can't defend themselves on the show. But yeah, Nathy, sorry, go ahead. Tell us what you think.
I didn't really play anything like new or super exciting. I did find a demo of like Half-Life meets Climby. If you want to check that out, there's a video on my channel. It's a free demo made by Shadow Brain. But I want to talk again about Astrobot because I'm getting closer to the end. I'm about to finish world number 4, and I know there are 6 as far as I know. So
no spoilers now.
And I was, sometimes when you start a game, it's kind of boring at the start, or it needs to, pick up the pace a bit because you first need to do the tutorials, blah 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 blah, and it's kind of easy peasy. In world number 4, I started to really get into it, where I was like, this is for me again like mind blowing. This is again why I love this game so much. So I played this one level called Neon Night Ride, I think. I'm not sure, but it was like a theme park with UFOs, popcorn, candy, crazy platforms, swapping, doing crazy stuff. It's not really a spoiler, I would say, because it's a platformer after all. But it was so like original once again, in the way they made use out of the same stuff they used in World 1, 2, 3, and they used it in different ways. I was like, whoa, it's like next level. And I don't know, I was just having an amazing time again. I got excited for the rest of the worlds. It's a great game. If you have a PlayStation VR, go get it. If you were maybe interested in getting a PSVR, bundle it with your headset. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree. I wholeheartedly recommend Astrobot. And, for me, I think I blitzed it in 2 days. I just couldn't get enough of that game. Really enjoyed my time with it. And I think I would have wanted to show off more on the channel, really. But I just ended up doing a little highlight reel of my favorite levels in the end. But yeah, I totally love that one. And, it's got a lot of replayability. You can really go back and dive into it some more because there's little collectibles each level, of course, little hidden bots you need to find.
Also, I don't know if you guys find this, like as a content creator, I find it really hard showing off games that look really good on PSVR to others because the way it extracts, there's no way to show how good it looks in the headset to anyone else. Like there are some things you can do, but it's not the same. You know, it's not parody, and it kind of hurts because Astrobot looks amazing.
Yeah, you really need a capture card, an external capture card, to make it look decent. Streaming looks pretty rough, I think, on PSVR when you're streaming it natively from the headset, from the console, which is a real shame. But when you capture it and then upload it for a video, pre-recorded video, it kind of looks kind of nice. But yeah, like Astrobot, wholeheartedly recommend. Awesome title. So yeah, if you haven't checked it out already and you own a PSVR, you owe it to yourself to go and check it out for sure.
Yeah.
So let's find out what Zim's been up to then this week.
Me, let's see, what was that? There was something that the whole prison thing that Nathy was talking about kind of oddly segues into my update this week. I'll talk to short things, because aside from setting myself the goal last week of, we beat Foz, now moving on to Skyrim, I've realized the folly in my own setting that objective. Skyrim is so bloody hard and long. It's like, I'm not even going to talk about Skyrim because I'm sure I'll still be doing that in January. But I'm digging through Skyrim at the moment. The thing that I wanted to really highlight was, because we always talk about that this is an AR podcast as well, and I kind of pride myself on knowing what AR apps are out there and try them out, especially that Jesus one I talked about recently. But there's a new one called Orbu, which is pretty nifty. It's like you were taking, it's almost like a Marble Madness type game where you've got this little roller fella, and you kind of it's like an inverse gravity mechanic where you like pull back like a slingshot, and then it gives him some inertia and he rolls around this level. But the level that you set is a bit like some of the other AR games that we've played and kind of demonstrated before, but it just like it plunks down kind of like a play area, and it's all three-dimensional. And the most beautiful part about it so far, I'm not terribly far into it, maybe an hour and a half or so, is these like lovely Japanese style trees with these like square pink boxes that are just floating and drifting. And the detail level, like when you get up close with your phone or whatever you're using for the AR game, it's just astounding. It's only a couple of bucks as well, so I definitely recommend Orbu. It's spelled O-R-B-U. I'm playing it on iOS. I don't know if it's available on Android, but usually these things are. So I'd recommend checking that out. And then my kind of prison segue, that's just kind of a simple thing, is I've been doing a lot, because for the last couple of years, people have always kind of asked me, how good is VR for like cinema, like for watching movies in VR? And I really haven't done a lot before this year. I just kind of started dipping my feet in it. But I got to tell you, since getting the Oculus Go, it is my go-to for when I'm like, I am wrecked and I am just tired and I don't want to deal with anything else. Like lying down anywhere, being able to literally lie down totally comfortably, reset the orientation. Now you have, with a recent Oculus Go patch, the ability to, even using like Amazon Prime or Netflix. Netflix was obviously built into it already, but now even with Amazon Prime, you can even just take the browser window, expand it. You have now a tray option to darken the background scene. So literally you can see nothing but the film. Put on some nice headsets. You can't hear the kids or wife or nothing. You are just watching the film in full bloody HD. It's beautiful. So I watched a film that I'd heard about for ages and I didn't know about, called American History X, which has prison scenes and things like it, which is kind of a violent film and quite an aggressive movie. But it was a great way to experience it, like with full attention. Like your phone's not going to interrupt you. Nobody's going to come tap you on the shoulder. You are in watching the film. So that's the kind of my number one use case, is just a default Oculus Go, get the cheapest one, and just watch films that way. It's super relaxing.
Yeah. I would totally agree with that, and that's before the Oculus Go arrived. I was using big screen for exactly the same reason. I was playing some pancake games in there, and I was also watching movies in there. And obviously now, since the Go is released, I do that now in the Go. But it's for that simple reason alone, that you're completely immersed in it and you're not distracted by notifications on your phone or anyone around you, and you're completely isolated and in that experience. And it's actually very immersive to not be distracted by anything around you in the real world, to get sucked into an experience, and probably a great way to watch your favorite movie. So I totally recommend that as an experience.
And I do think that some people will criticize and say, oh, the resolution's not good enough. I personally disagree. I think it's just beyond the point for me where I'm fine with it. I'm totally fine with it. Yeah. Enough that my 4K TV, I'd rather be lying down and be totally like muscles relaxed than be sitting up and expending that little bit of energy for TV. Now that makes me sound like a lazy bastard, which at that time of day or night, like I can be.
But that's fine. That's fine.
We all need that.
We all can do that. That's fine. But it's kind of funny because you mentioned from Other Suns, going back to games and completing them, and you kind of inspired me to kind of go through my old library, and I've kind of been re-downloading games, particularly from Other Suns, because I really do want to. I'm intrigued to find out what happens at the end. But also Arizona Sunshine. Like I don't think I ever finished the final level of that, even though I completed the DLC. So I'm going to go back and finish that as well. But in terms of stuff that I played this week, like I played a bunch of stuff because I did a lot of mixed reality capture this week. But instead of talking about the games that I kind of played, I wanted to kind of highlight Live as the tool that I use to capture these games, because I played Beat Saber, Gorn, Box VR, VR Furballs, and also H3, Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades. And for those that are not aware of Live, it's the mixed reality capture tool that was sort of responsible for those early Beat Saber viral videos. They went crazy viral. They were shared on pretty much every social network, and I still believe to this day that it has a lot to do with the responsibility and the success of Beat Saber. Like, Beat Saber is a standalone great game on its own, but I really think this kind of viral marketing through these kind of amazing looking videos that kind of really helped out get that boost in the beginning. And I've been dabbling with MR content recording for a little while, and Live really makes things so much easier, and the app is getting better and better over time, because I don't know if you guys have ever tried it before. But certainly when you compare it to like the Oculus mixed reality tools that they provide, like it's night and day how much easier it is to composite a scene using Live than doing.
How do you get access to it, Mike? How do you just download Live from a website, or is it on Steam? Or
yeah, it's on Steam. It's completely free. It will be watermarked with Powered by Live unless you sign up to their Discord, and then you can have that watermark removed as soon as you sign up there. But it's worth signing up there anyway, because there's a wealth of knowledge there, loads of support. The devs are really sort of on hand and give you the best advice and recording settings and stuff like that, so you can get the best possible capture depending on what you're doing in terms of streaming or recording. But also they're working on some really interesting stuff for streamers in particular, particularly Twitch streamers. So you may be interested in this, if you ever want to dabble with this in the future. When you're capturing mixed reality content using Live, they're looking at integrating tools. So say if you're playing Beat Saber, for example, am I right in that your audience can donate bits, is it, to Twitch streamers?
Yeah, it's the equivalent of, when you go to a strip club and you stick $1 down the shirt of somebody, that's the same as bits.
That's what it is, right? Okay. So when you donate the bits, if you reach a threshold, then that could unlock an interactive item in game. So in Beat Saber, for example, it would spawn a custom block in the middle of your track. Or if you're playing another game, an enemy or a special enemy or a really powerful enemy. So the audience can have more control over your stream and more interactivity in the stream, which is kind of cool. I think it makes it more exciting to watch. So yeah, it's really interesting what they're doing. I think they're doing a way better job than Oculus are in terms of integrating mixed reality, support in terms of recording. Because I still think it's a great way to show off VR. But just one thing to note: if you do want to record MR content using the Rift, you really need to get the Steam games of the ones you want to play, because it doesn't work with any Oculus native titles. So just be aware of that.
That's an important point.
Yep. Okay. So that's the kind of thing I just wanted to sort of highlight of my week. But also one more thing I just want to talk about very quickly is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I got to check that out at the cinema this week. And I have to say, like, it was like a standout Spider-Man movie. Like, we all love comic book heroes, superhero movies. And this was one of the best superhero movies I've seen this year. And if you like Spider-Man, you've never seen it like this before. It's beautifully animated. It has loads of great voice actors. And it's one that the whole family can enjoy. So I would definitely recommend you go and check it out if you're looking for a movie to check out over the Christmas period.
Cool. So looking at the chat, we of course had some people here as well that played some games.
Sure. Go for it.
Wataug played Seeking Dawn, Evasion, Battlezone VR, Fox Machine, Overload, and Fallout 4 VR.
Wow.
And then we have Roots, who played Polybius. That's a new one, as far as I know.
Yes. Yes, based on the
Sam 1,
arcade.
Titanic VR, and To the Top. Oh, and also Detached. And then we have Michael Fletcher, who played Subnautica. That is still free, right, on the store?
Yep, till 27th.
I did hear that VR did not work straight away, but you can just do some stuff to it and then it's VR, or is this just something I heard?
I haven't tried it personally using the Epic Games app, but yeah, I heard that some people have been using it. Some people have been reporting issues, so I think you have to tweak it a little bit.
Stay tuned for Zim's
No, it makes
guide.
sense. It makes sense because, and I've been running Subnautica, but Steam itself has a kind of separated VR version of the launch, so no doubt that when you download it on Origin, it would need that.
Okay.
Right.
And then we have Hussein, who completed Wilson's Heart recently, and also checked out all the heroes in Marvel Powers United. He says that patch 3 is much better than the initial release. Matches last about 10 minutes. And then last but not least, we have a tip from Watauk, who says that Project Cars 2 is now on the Humble Bundle for $12.
Nice, good tip. Hats off to the guy that played Detached. I saw Zim's face as well. He's like, wow, that's like motion sickness simulator. That is right there.
But also, I mean, he also played Evasion and Seeking Dawn. He really went for the tough nuts to crack, I would say.
He's the real MVP, yeah.
Yeah, dude.
And just talking about Wilson's Heart again as well, that game does some real standout things during that game that I haven't seen again since in another VR game.
Like grabbing your head, you know, with like little Frankenstein
I don't want to spoil anything, but it does some really clever stuff with your hands as well later on.
Okay.
Yeah, great game.
I still haven't finished it. I thought it was too creepy.
You should take inspiration of us all going back to complete older games and go and do it.
Just don't go back too much.
Yeah, you should make some promises so we can hold you to it next week's show and give you a forfeit to do.
Well, funny enough, like this week in my email box, there was like a company who said like, "Hey, you want to play Resident Evil 7?" You know, I was like, no.
I would watch that stream. I would be there. I'd be there to hear you scream.
Like they offered me $1 million, by the way. I was like, nah.
Yeah, not worth it. Not worth it. So let's jump into some quick news this week. And first up, again, a brand new Beat Saber track again this week. The Beat Saber team are dishing out these Christmas presents like nobody's business. And they announced and released another free track on all platforms as well. And this time it was the awesome KDA Popstars track. And not only is this a cool track, and the beat mapping is absolutely spot on for this track, it also has a themed level with purple and orange sabers instead of the traditional ones.
That's new.
Kind of nice.
That's different, right? That's the first time they change up their whole, standard
custom
design.
Just for this one track.
It's the beginning of the end, I think. Because once you start customizing, it unravels the entire thing. But I saw your tweet, Mike. I saw your tweet. Clearly you hate the song and could do nothing but play it repeatedly until you got third in the world, was it?
Yeah, but to be fair, like it was the day it came out, and that's probably gone now. I just do it every time a new track comes out, just so I can see myself in the top 5, and then I'm like, yeah, I made it, and then like within an hour or two, it like 200 or something like that.
So do you guys think that if they update it too much with new songs, that it kind of gets old? Where it's kind of nice to wait for a while and get like I've seen games where they they do like a patch and it's like, wow, amazing. But if some, like I've seen some games, but I mean Beat Saber is a total different like story here, but sometimes it kills the excitement a little bit if you start to use too much of your magic.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think PCVR players probably don't care too much, because I played this KDA track like when it first came out, like on a custom beat track. But the problem is there is a little bit of magic when it's a proper Beat Saber track. The real love and effort goes into making these tracks, and you really do feel like you're part of the song because it is perfectly in time with the music. But PSVR players, I'd imagine, are the ones that really are like loving it right now, because they don't have access to custom tracks. So getting all these like fresh tracks every week or so, like we have recently, they're probably overjoyed.
So what could you give PC players then to let them keep coming back to Beat Saber next to those mods?
Just stop breaking the customization tools that people keep on installing, because every time they update the app, it breaks like the injectors for these custom tracks.
Wait, so they are patching against this?
I don't think they're doing it on purpose. I just think it just happens to be like, because they're doing updates, it happens to break.
So it's like a curse and a bless in the end to have this, because everyone can add every song. It's totally free. Let's say if they wanted to like sell DLC stuff, they can't really do it, because people can just make it themselves. I mean, we have seen it with the PlayStation VR. We showed off like the new songs on our channels, and people were like, "Oh, I just modded that one," you know.
Yeah.
Don't really have to. So like, I wonder how can you like make, well, let's say money of Beat Saber. Of course, you can like have, you know, KDA, and you're like, hey, let's say you're getting money, I get money, and let's put your track in there, and it's advertisement for everyone, joy for everyone. But I wonder, how can you?
I think really, like, because we know the DLC tracks are coming. I think it's PSVR that really is going to be the market for them, where they make money. Because, like you say, PCVR players already have all the tools they need. Although, like I said, there is a certain magic about a proper Beat Saber made track.
I gotta back Mike's point on this. Is like, I don't think the frequency matters so much, provided they don't ever undermine their quality level. Like if they released it and it wasn't the same kind of polish, then people would start shunning it. But I think that even if they're drip feeding us tracks, provided they're at a decent level, and they'll still make money on it, because no business is geared up to make money on 100%. You know, people are going to cheat the system. But how many people are, I mean, aside from the PC community, are modding, you know, around that? Even on PC, there's going to be a base of people who would just rather just pay for some DLC. But it's the same problem that, like, you know, Assetto ran into, because they allowed modding and cars and tracks. They'd release a pack of like this laser scan track, and then before long it becomes you know, a freebie that someone has
going even further back into, like, you know, the void of the internet. Some people just downloaded Beat Saber from some sketchy website and they didn't even buy it. I mean, there are enough people that play all the VR games out there, but they didn't pay for it. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there.
I've never ever really encountered that before, but it's an interesting point though. But I think it's interesting with custom tracks with Beat Saber particularly, is because a lot of the best track charters were hired by Beat Saber, so they're not making these custom tracks for the community for free anymore. So I'm sure there's other people stepping into their shoes, but it's interesting to see that they hired all the best ones.
I think for them, you know, the way to go is to keep approaching labels and you know, promote. Like, let's say if they're next year Drake or Kanye West or someone else that is freaking famous says like, I want one of these songs on my album to be an exclusive on Beat Saber, and you can also listen it there first in the game, then we're getting to a new level of, like, you know, advertisement.
And I'm sure that's only going to be a matter of time, because, you know, you mentioned Kanye West and these other big people, but KDA is like huge. Like, I think a lot of people underestimate how huge they are. Like their video of this track that only came out like a couple of months ago got 120 million views on YouTube. 120 million. And that's insane. So
it's pretty hipster. I mean, it's so futuristic to put some kind of Beat Saber code on your album that allows people to actually unlock the game with your new song. And it's like you can only listen it there, but you also need to play it to be able to listen it. I think Avicii did that like 2 years ago with an app on iPhone, as far as I know, and you could only like listen to his song the first week through this audio kind of like game. So you have to surf the waves, you know, like an audio surf title. So I think someone is gonna pull that up where it's like, listen, you can only go in Beat Saber to hear it.
Please don't do the software exclusivity thing. Please, we got sick of that with the whole Intel processor bit on, I can't remember what game, Crisis or something. Oh my.
Imagine like Kanye West releasing a bundle with his album and a Rift and Beat Saber or a PlayStation VR. Like, you would be surprised what's going to happen next year with some artists pulling something off. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be crazy.
Certainly look forward to that. I welcome that. So let's talk about something else that's free this week that you can check out, and that is from SteamVR. It seems like Valve are dishing out free content as well, and you've now got a new SteamVR environment to check out called Winter Peak. You can venture forth from the cozy warmth of the rover and feel the frost in the air as you trek out into the snowy bluff.
I'm so curious.
This is created by the same team that brought you the Gulping Goat environment and the Halloween Candy Emporium.
We checked that out, right? We checked the Halloween, and it was like legit super interactive and fun and scary. And oh yeah, I saw the picture. Like every time I go into these destinations to just, you know, check them out, they're like jam-packed with Easter eggs. And the cool thing is, if you really like it, you can make it your own like home. So you could just customize it from there and just always spawn in this Christmas environment.
Exactly. Christmas will never end for you.
It will never end. You can have like in the summer, it's like Christmas. Yeah.
Are they sticky then? Like, does the environment still stick around, or is it gonna go away after a month?
No, it stays around. Yeah, you can customize it so it's completely your own. Yeah.
It's just they are usually a little bit too interactive to be a home environment. I mean, if you go for the candy store, it's like, you know, there's like candy flying around, and then every time you jump in, it's like, well, what the heck's going on? So it's a little bit maybe too interactive to be a home environment. I don't know about the Christmas one, but
when you guys stepped into this before, was performance an issue? Because for me, whenever I've gone into SteamVR Home, like it's a notable impact. Well more, maybe 30% of your CPU or something is getting chomped on by this thing.
I never really noticed any performance issues.
No.
But we also explored one together where you had to unlock a room with 2 people. Like you both had to push a button at the same time to find a secret hidden rocket silo. And then you unlocked a Team Fortress Sentry if you did it. You know?
Nice.
Yeah. That was kind of cool. But yeah, loads of Easter eggs, loads of stuff to explore. So go and check it out if you want to have a look around that sort of winter peak environment. But whilst we're also on the subject of Valve, I just wanted to also just throw in some other little snippets in there. And that's that some further iterations of the Valve Knuckles have been shipped to devs this week with some small refinements. It seems like they've split the trigger in half a little bit. So they've got a little kind of like trigger at the top and a bigger one at the bottom, and also improved the springs, some other bits and pieces. Again, this probably won't be the last iteration we see, but it's just interesting that they keep on churning these out. And also we got some fresh sort of speculative news from the Valve News Network about 4 unknown VR apps from Valve that have been listed on SteamDB. And this kind of gives us further fuel for the fire that Valve are working behind the scenes on some VR content. Of course, nothing is confirmed, and we'll probably have to wait patiently for Valve to tell us in their own time. But it's still interesting, nevertheless, that it is clear that something is going on behind the scenes over at Valve in the VR world.
Nice.
You can pray the glorious PC Master Race there representing Nathy with his top on. You can pray to Lord Gaben, and hopefully it'll happen soon.
May our frame rates be high and our temperatures low. Especially with the SteamVR headset, because my temperatures are rising. The more I hear about this, the more exciting I'm getting.
It's going to be very exciting.
The moment they release, let's say, this headset everyone is talking about, they must bundle it with some games, and they must bundle it with these Valve Knuckles controllers. Oh man, it's like a new generation coming, you know, where it's like, hey, for someone like me that is, I don't know, spent like 4 or 5 years in VR now, I still didn't lose my eyeballs. I don't know how, but like my eyeballs are ready for this headset, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I've triggered you now. I've triggered you.
You trigger me every time. Everyone triggers me when it's about Valve, and especially now we have seen these pictures of these headsets they are working on. We kind of know it's not a Photoshop funny joke anymore, or it's like April 1. It's like, hey guys, Gabe knows, like, hey, it's an April 1's joke.
But think if you were in Valve's position, like with the Quest just around the corner, wouldn't it be an awfully dicey thing to do to drop a new headset with the Knuckles, new trackers, and the orange box?
I don't think so, because Oculus are focused on Quest. The only real competition really I see now that's being innovative is Pimax, and now we've got Xtile saying they're going to make a gaming headset in the future, but that's way off. So really, it's only Pimax that are really doing something really fresh and new right now. You got Odyssey, of course, but and that's an exciting headset, and I do think that is legit. But if Valve come out during that time where Oculus are focused on something else,
that's what I'm saying.
They really could do something magical there.
They could take back a chunk of the market. Because if I'm sitting here with my Quest money, right, and I'm ready to drop it on Quest, and they announce this or even drop it prior to Quest hitting, here you go, Valve.
I think even if they were not working on the Quest and they worked on also a PC headset, then Valve still has a big chance of. I mean, we're talking about Valve here, and I mean, Valve is kind of like Apple, where it's like they have such a big crowd following them that if they release something, it's like everyone wants to have it. So I mean, it has that certain level of, I don't know. Yeah,
but let's not dwell on it too much. It is very exciting, because otherwise we talk about it the whole show.
Come back to this when it's confirmed, okay?
Yeah, okay. But yeah, keep on throwing little
don't torture me like this.
Dog biscuits.
So let's talk about let's talk about PSVR owners, because some PSVR owners were a bit confused this week, especially those that pre-ordered Starchild on PSVR, because the upcoming game had a little update this week, and a lot of people received a message from the PlayStation Store stating that the publisher has notified us that the game is cancelled. So all these people that pre-ordered Starchild were like, what the heck's going on? The game's been cancelled? What is this? Thankfully, that's not actually the case. The developers were really quick to respond to this on Twitter, stating that Playful, which is the developer, is hard at work on Starchild. Our internal projected launch date changed, triggering a cancellation of pre-orders on PSN. But rest assured, the game's development is still alive and well, and we can't wait to share more soon. So if you're not familiar with Starchild, it's an interesting looking cinematic side scroller in VR from the same team called Playful that brought you Lucky's Tale on Rift. So
and you can actually play a little bit of it. You can play a little bit of it on the downloadable demo disc 2 on PSVR. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out, Mike, it's actually pretty cool. They do scale really well in a similar way to they do in like Chronos. But it is that kind of, it's like a two-dimensional experience.
Wait, so it's disc only? Can you not just download it from the store as a demo? It's only on the disc.
No, so demo disc 2 is the name of the digital file that you go and you grab and you download. So it's I don't even know that demo disc 2 was ever actually on a physical disc. Yeah,
I think I think it was, because they updated the PSVR. And then they also added a new disc to that, because there are 2 discs.
But this the demo disc, I think, predated the revision of the hardware that you're talking about. So I don't know. Maybe that's it. Maybe they packaged this now. But if you're a PSVR owner, like one of the things that you might not realize, because demo discs back in the day were the shiz. Like they were awesome.
Yeah, they still are.
And I think we all love them. Hey, free content you can play, just repeat, unrepeat. I played Power Stone on Dreamcast about 70 times over, just on the.
I played that demo like for hours.
Just on the demo level, with my brother again and again. Yeah. So like you can get those 2 demo discs versions of content downloaded, and they each have about, I don't know, 15, 16 titles you can just kind of sample. Yeah. Definitely worth doing.
But marketing-wise, this kind of sucks now, because every time they're now on a show floor or they go somewhere, it's like, hey, but isn't your game canceled? It's like that thing you kind of need to target now, where it's like, we need to get this out of the way, because some people might have spread this news in a way where it's like first canceled and now it isn't anymore. But people nowadays read articles halfway through. So
I thought it was canceled. Because I just saw the headlines on Reddit, and unless Mike had dug this one up, I would have thought it was canceled.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that it's not, because it does look kind of cool. It kind of reminds me of Shadow Complex. I don't know if you guys ever played that one, the Epic Games side scroller, but that was a really cool one. Kind of looks very similar to that. So.
Talking about Lucky Still, I heard this rumor, and I don't know. I tried to research it, but someone said oh, I played Lucky Still on my Go. I'm like, what? Did I miss something out? Is that a thing?
Well, they could technically, because Super Lucky's Tale is available as a pancake game, and they could have maybe streamed their PCVR content to their Go using AlVR or Nolo or something like that. So technically they could have done, but not natively, no.
Cheaters.
Yeah.
Liar, pants on fire. So next up is Angry Birds coming to VR. It's being developed by Scandinavian Resolution Games in partnership with Rovio, obviously the developers of Angry Birds. Resolution Games are the creators of Rowdy's dad's favorite fishing game on mobile, and that is Bait. Which is such a fun game. If you haven't checked it out on Go, it's hilarious and really addictive. But a few months ago, Resolution Games, along with Rovio, announced that they were developing Angry Birds first-person slingshot for Magic Leap. So they've developed that already, and that's already released. But now that that's done, they're working on the VR version, which will be called Angry Birds Isle of Pigs. Amazing name. And it's going to be coming to all major VR platforms early next year, which is kind of interesting. Are you guys Angry Birds fans?
I was, but in the past, when it was still hipster to play it. But
yeah, it's one of those titles that they're flogging that horse to death year after year. It's kind of like Plants vs. Zombies. Loved it at the beginning. Now I'm starting to wear on it. So. Yeah.
Yeah. I was already surprised they brought it to the Magic Leap. I was like, okay, I can deal with that. Makes sense to do that. But then on VR headsets, I'm like, I've seen, well, that's like shuffleware in a way, but I've seen other devs do it.
Yeah.
You know, I think the Furballs one is the only one that is like legit super nice. The other ones were always kind of, you know, sketchy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I honestly, I'm not that excited for Angry Birds, but you never know. Maybe they surprise us in a way where it's like, hey, we throw in some interactive features, because I played it on a pancake screen on my iPad. So
like Tetris, right? Like, I mean, Tetris, I was definitely against before playing the demo, and then playing the demo, I'm like, I will definitely pick this up. I'll pick this up for half price in 6 months. But it's
that's a really good point that you made there, Zim. I think it's kind of one of those things. I'd love to know people's opinions in the chat as well. But you made a great point there as well, Nathie, that you know, if you want an Angry Birds game in VR right now, VR Furballs does a fantastic job of it. It's essentially the same thing. It's a clone, right, of that format.
So looking at the chat, Rowdy is still alive. He says, I'm there in spirit. And my brother, David, was trying to trigger me with BioShock VR. You guys may know this week, they were trolling around with that, and they should have not done that because everyone was like extremely triggered. But no, it's not confirmed. And this is the second time they triggered me, because at E3, people were like, "Hey, Nathie, BioShock VR," and like, you know, I've been like exploring the entire show floor, no sign of BioShock VR. Okay, I checked every corner, the back doors, the hotels around it where they also demoed secret stuff. Didn't happen. Okay, didn't happen.
And the funny thing was, isn't it because they said something about BioShock Tales? Is that part of the tweet?
No, they were like, what was it? Like forklift simulator.
Yep.
They were like working on a forklift simulator game, and they thought it was funny to also throw some BioShock vibes in there, because this dev did the remasters for all the BioShock games, but they didn't know that. They should have known. I mean, BioShock is like, for a lot of people, a very important thing, and then they were streaming their forklift simulator whatever thing,
and everyone
was like in the chat like, "Hey, where's BioShock VR? You lied to us, you clickbait." I don't know.
Frankly, I would love a forklift simulator in VR. I would totally.
On Oculus Home, there is one. I played it. It's good, man. You should check it out.
Yeah,
I will. You know what I really want?
And it's multiplayer too.
Have you guys heard of the game, which is on a sale now at the Steam sales and stuff, called Spin Tires? It's like this game where you're driving these fucking massive Russian trucks through like mud and stuff like that. Yeah, I wish that was in multiplayer in VR. That would be amazing. Anyway.
Sort of takes me back to Tractable, like visions.
Tractable? The Rocket League VR game.
I remember playing it with Zim and just getting very motion sick.
Oh my god, that was so good. You turned freaking different colors, Mike.
Yeah, I did not like that.
No.
But yeah, let's talk about some releases this week then. And first off, whilst we're on the subject of like engines and motors and stuff, let's talk about Wrench. And if you've listened to previous episodes of the show, you'll know that I've gushed about this game in the past. You know, I loved the engine building demo that they provided on Oculus for free. It's a fantastic demo, and you can basically piece to piece an engine from scratch, and it's like the best Lego kind of experience for me ever. I loved it. But now the full game is released on early access on Steam, so you can't get it on Oculus. You have to go through Steam to get the early access version. But the thing is, the main game revolves around you maintaining race cars, which maybe wasn't clear in the demo. So you're servicing race cars, you're diagnosing problems by sort of checking components that are rattling, etc., and replacing them, so you can get them prepped for race, and then they go out and race. And depending on how well you sort of maintain the car, how well it does in the race, and it kind of goes in that loop. And you know, the mechanical parts of it are absolutely amazing. The parts look really realistic. You have to use the right tools for the right job, and that part of it is amazing. But the thing is, like, I'm not that interested in servicing people's cars. You know, I just want to build a kit car that I can just stand there and say, I piece that together and fire up the engine and say,
I want to go for the sandbox experience there.
Exactly. So sadly, that sandbox experience isn't in the game yet. I've got early access to it, and unfortunately, I was disappointed. I did email the devs and I pleaded to them, please put this in your final game, because that's all I'm interested in.
Caps lock? Did you send it in caps lock too?
I did, actually. Yeah, I did. Okay. I'm sure, I don't know. I might just be the only one that kind of feels that way. I'm sure there's other people out there that love the idea of maintaining race cars. But for me, it was just like, I just want to build a car. And it is actually on their roadmap for the future.
Roadmap.
Roadmap, yeah. But if you're interested in servicing race cars, then you can check it out now in early access. Like I said, it's only on Steam right now, but it does work with the Rift and Windows MR as well. And it's $15.49 in British pounds, $19.99 in US dollars, and that is wrench.
Imagine they have like a Lego DLC where you can make one of those Lego racer cars, back in the days where you could build them. That would be amazing, and then drive them.
It's funny thing about that demo was like, I really loved it, but there was a part of it where I picked up the engine to kind of look around it, and this tiny little spring came off in my hand, and I was just like, there's no way I'm going to find out where this goes now. Just slung it over my shoulder and like, carry on.
It's just driving a car that is like, that's so funny if you can also feel or see the effects of what's going on. Maybe it still drives without it. I don't know.
That's the problem. You can't actually sit in the car or drive it. You just know from stats that how well it did in a race.
It would be great though, where it's like, oh, and now I know where it's for, because then you also learn, because of the trial and error of what it does.
This totally goes back. I don't know if you guys caught up with the hype with like around Battlefield 2, where the whole idea was you had this commander mode, you had like the different soldiers on the battlefield, then you had people like doing the strategy over the top. But if you apply that same formula to a racing game and you say, okay, Mike is going to be my mechanic and take care of my car. I'm going to be in the race cockpit. I'll be doing that thing. And we have a different role for Nathan. Who knows what that's going to be. Maybe he can be one of the girls with the flags at the end. All dolled up, just to get the crowd real wild. But yeah, no, I really think that the one thing for me about Wrench was, it's this idea of like, setting your expectations. And for me, I was like eyeing it, and I had my wish list on Oculus Home for like the longest time. And they're like, coming November. And then it was like mid-December before they even updated. And the whole time I'm like, okay, is it actually coming out? That only, dropped on Steam. So I was a little bit like, all right, I'll wait. I'll just wait until it's ready. So.
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to drop the full release on Oculus whenever it's ready.
It's so unique. You got me totally into it. You got me totally into the whole concept. I haven't played a game like that yet. And even if it is about tuning a car for someone else to race or whatever, it's still that kind of hands-on mechanical side. And if you've ever maintained, a motor, I had a crash on a 50cc scooter, which totally just tore up the front fork and stuff. I took it apart and it bolts into buckets, and then like a year and a half later I pieced it back together. How I managed to do that, I don't know, but that's what it brought me back to, was like, I can go piece a machine back together, and I want to do that.
Yeah, it's like an interactive Haynes manual. It's amazing. So the other release I want to talk about this week is Skyfront. This game has been in early access for a long time, and it finally released out of early access this week on Oculus and on Steam. So if you're not familiar with Skyfront, it's a fast-paced first-person shooter built exclusively for VR, and the game launches you into mesmerizing zero-G arenas. You're equipped with like a thruster, which is kind of like a jetpack to sort of fly around the arena, or you can use this kind of really cool grappling hook, which is great for sort of dodging incoming fire and zipping about internal sort of structures. And we played this a while ago. Me, Rowdy, and Nathan played this.
Yes.
And funny story about our playthrough. This was the first time I've ever seen it was the first time I'd ever seen a pole dance in VR. And you talking about Nathan being a good track girl, I think he would make a great job. Seeing those hips move around that tree.
I remember.
In Skyfront was incredible. So
it was the first time we made a video together, as far as I
was.
So it's a multiplayer competitive
pole dancing simulator.
Pole dancing simulator.
They want to make it an esport too, so that's going to be interesting.
No, to be fair, it is a really sort of solid multiplayer shooter, and it's got tons of arenas, weaponry, power-ups, multiplayer modes. They've now got deathmatch, team deathmatch, and my personal favorite, team domination. And the cool thing is, just like in like Call of Duty and the other great shooters out there, if you play the game, you can level up and get custom sort of skins, visors, and trails, so you can really show off your hard work. And the other really cool thing about this game is that it's got a really good price point, I feel. Right now, it's only £5 in British pounds, $7 on Oculus Home and Steam. So they're making it really sort of affordable, and kind of like, you know, let's give this a go. And I really hope that by dropping the price and making it more accessible, they really build a solid community there of people that are dedicated.
That's what, like, I think that was their main focus from the start, like trying to get the community on there, trying to play around with the prices, with the marketing, showing the game to people, making it an e-sport to get more, you know. So I don't know how many people play it nowadays. You do hear more about this game. I mean, marketing wise, they have been playing a very smart strategy. Because every few months I hear about this title, even that it's like, you know, it exists for such a long time. But yeah, I wonder about the player base, because you would think with all these tricks they are using, you know, like, you know, you unlock things, you have progression, you have, you know, a cheaper price to jump into this game, that should really, you know, grow the player base more.
Yeah, and the skills and the weaponry, you can really sort of find a build of a character that suits your own play style. So if you're more of a shotgun guy, you've got to
be more like a hero type of.
Exactly. It's very customizable. Worth checking out if you want to play some multiplayer and frag some people over the holiday season. And the next up, sorry, go on, Zim.
No, I was just gonna say, because the main barrier that I find like Steam games have now, like a few years ago, if a developer wanted to promote a multiplayer game, they could do these like 4 for the price of 3 deals, and then you'd have like one person would like foot the bill of like, let's say 15 quid in this case, and then distribute the the game to other friends, so that they, you know, it's not like 4 independent transactions to get 4 people to play, and it kind of lowered the barrier. But because of, I think it was anti-fraud measures, they had to do that because people were, you know, taking these extra codes and then circulating them on a market for cheaper. So they're just undercutting Steam, and the dev was hurting as a result. But I thought that was a real shame, because now the only thing a dev can really do, which I think is a real double-edged sword, is reduce the price. Because on one side, for me, if I see a multiplayer game that's, you know, 5 quid, 2 quid, whatever it is, it's saying to me, we're not popular enough to support a bigger price. I need, you know, to drop the bar. And so it actually pushes me away a little bit. But at the same time, it's that balancing act with, can I get 3 other friends and I together on this game and convince them all to spend that money and go through that? Because if it was 10 quid a pop, that's 40 quid.
But I think this is a problem with multiplayer games in general. You know, we played, what was it, Slightly Heroes a couple of weeks ago. They did the same thing, you know, focused on 1v1 in the beginning because the player base was small and the price point was super low as well. So again, another very accessible game. But it's just very difficult just because of the small amount of players within VR right now. You know, so
but I think if the dev moves carefully with that, and it's like, okay, we're starting with 1v1, even that people want more. I think that's a good move. Because then you know, you can, or think like, oh yeah, we see more people joining in, we want to expand, and then slowly do 2v2 and stuff like that. Or you can kill your project before you're losing even more money.
Yeah, and especially like I think with Skyfront, you know, players drop in as the game is being played, I believe. You know, so they replace bots and stuff like that, which is a really smart mechanic, I believe. I think I'm remembering that right. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. But yeah, you know, it's worth checking out. In my opinion, it's a decent shooter, and you can have a lot of fun with it, I think. So let's talk about a free one if you want some free content. And that is Dear Angelica is coming to Oculus Go. The award-winning Oculus Story Studios' final and best work arrived on the Oculus Go this week. And it's a thrilling piece made using Quill, which is, you know, the animation tool that you can actually animate.
I need some tissues.
It is a hard one. It is definitely a hard one.
So I'm interested to hear your thoughts, because I've never checked this out before, but apparently it says here that the story is based on a young girl writing to her idolized mother, who's an actress. So tell me more. Tell me more about your experience with it, because I haven't tried this one out yet.
That's all you need to know, I would say.
Yeah, honestly, that is a very well summarized version of it. But the only thing that I would say is, it's one of these. It's very similar to. I would give a movie spoiler if I had to. No, I'll just say this, Mike. It's incredibly well stylized, so it ticks the box in what you would expect there. I believe I heard this is using the same 360 technology that was used for Henry.
Yep, exactly. Correct?
So I'm keen to actually try that out because you might actually you'll have a higher resolution experience potentially than Rift users would have had in the first run. But exactly. No, it's a touching story, and I think what Nathy said, I would agree with. Which by the end, you got tears welling.
Yeah.
So right, okay.
The only thing I can say about is that when you jump in, like the artist is building this story around you, so you can see well, you don't see the person drawing it, but it's like it's all building around you. So first there's like a black void, and then things start to build and disappear again, and like you see in many Quill.
Yeah, cool. You're right. It's also very replayable. Like one of the things is you're not going to catch everything on one run. Like you probably want to watch it a couple of times to be able to catch all the detail.
And bring tissues because you're going to be welling up.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Get ready for that.
Don't drown your Oculus Go. I don't know if anyone ever did that, but don't try.
God, if you're crying that much into your headset, calling support.
But yeah, it's around 13 minutes long, apparently.
Yep.
And just like you rightly said, Zim, John Carmack tweeted this week that it's encoded for this special 5K playback. And he's added some bits and pieces to make it look really nice on Go. So definitely go and check it out. It's free, like I said. And even if you haven't checked it out on Rift before, it's free on Rift as well. So you can go and check it out there. But whilst we're on the subject of Oculus, let's talk about one of our main topics. And that is the Oculus Half Dome and deep focus technology. This is super interesting, I think, because in May this year at F8, which is the yearly conference in San Jose, not only did Oculus launch the Oculus Go, but they also shared details about their prototype, which they've been working on behind the scenes, called Half Dome. And this prototype was super interesting because it was the first time we'd ever seen it before, and it was jam-packed with some interesting technology like eye tracking. It had 140-degree field of view, and displays that actually moved within the headset to match your eye's focus. Now check this out. It has a very focal design. And basically what that means is that when your eyes look at something in the distance of the scene, the eye tracking would know that that's what your eyes are looking at and would mechanically move the displays in the headset accordingly so your eyes focus on that point. And then if you brought like a note up, a handwritten note in front of your face, the displays would then shift again, so the focal planes are moving, so your eyes would then focus on the text very clearly and sharply in front of you. So very interesting technology, very focal displays, it's called. So it moves just kind of, so you can imagine it in your mind a bit better, just like a camera lens does with a DSLR, for example. So it's always shifting to get that focus, and it works exactly how your eyes work in real life. So that's kind of interesting, and that's what they were talking about at F8. But this week, they were saying that they've even gone further with this, and they've paired this half-dome prototype with some new technology they're calling deep focus. Now, what deep focus is a real-time AI-powered rendering system that works with this very focal design to bring in real-time rendered blur. Okay, so you're probably thinking, why do I want blur, Mike? Why would I want blur in my headset? We've been talking about striving for the best possible clarity, and now you're just saying you want to blur things up. Like, what are you talking about? Well, this is how it works. So, in combination with the eye tracking, it knows where your eye is looking. So, a bit like dynamic foveated rendering, whatever you're looking at is in the highest possible clarity. But if you think about it, and if you do this at home, or if you're watching or live, or catching up on the sort of upload, if you sort of look at a point, you'll notice that everything around is kind of blurry. That's how your vision works. So whatever you're looking at directly is directly in focus, then everything else is kind of blurry around it. And what they're trying to do is replicate that in VR. And so it's on your peripheral vision, it's blurry, but whatever you look at will be super sharp because of the eye tracking. Now, one of the biggest potential benefits of this realistic retinal blur is that it can make VR experiences way more comfortable. So it could reduce potential motion sickness and be more helpful for newcomers to VR, acclimatize much faster and easier, which is great. One of the lead sort of developers behind this, Douglas Landman, very smart guy from the Oculus team, states that whether you're playing a video game for hours or looking at a boring spreadsheet, eye strain, visual fatigue, and everything else is all about sort of having a beautiful image that you're willing to spend your day with, and all of that matters. So he's saying, this is how they're trying to get you to spend more time in VR, essentially. And what he was saying was, I wanted something that could work with every single game immediately, so we didn't have to ask developers to alter their titles. They'd just work out the box with Half Dome. So this is obviously what they're thinking about in the future. So what they did was super smart. Instead of going to every developer of every game saying, look, you need to implement this SDK in your game before it will work on this new headset that we're working on in the future, they've incorporated AI and deep learning to sort of teach the system how to tell a VR scene the different depths and the different focal planes in a scene in VR. It's super clever. So the other alternative they could have done is just said, well, we're just going to push the processing power up, so you're going to need a beefier PC or a beefier GPU to power the system. But they decided to go the smart way and really sort of teach the system how to read a scene in a clever way using AI. So what they did was they showed the system 196,000 images drawn at random from a scene generator, and basically taught the system how to learn the different depths of these objects in virtual worlds. So it got so smart over time that it can do it like instantly and work with the eye tracking to know what you're looking at to make sure the focal plane is in focus. So it's super crazy technology. It's super interesting. A lot of people out there will be like, why blur it up? But like I said before, you don't necessarily notice it, but it will help overcome this kind of comfort barrier and motion sickness potentially in the future.
Yeah, if you remember.
I think also.
Go on, Nathan.
Sorry. Yeah, I think it's like also less tiring for the eyes, I would say, because there's less to focus on. Well, in a VR headset, especially when you start using it for the first time, your eyes can be very tiring the first time. It's like watching a TV screen from very close, and then also have that, where you're like, oh, I think that's enough. And even if you are used to VR, I have that sometimes where, something is like going on for hours. I'm in VR for like 4 or 5 hours. Then after a while, my eyes also get tired. And I think if you can just focus on that one thing, then the rest also fades away automatically. So your eyes are just way more relaxed. And I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah. No, it does, and that's exactly what they're trying to achieve here. So the Half Dome just worked with the very focal display, so about the different sort of focal lengths. But this adds the blurring effect to it, so that's the real magic behind deep focus. Nice. And the interesting thing is, when you combine the two together, you get a real magical experience, apparently. But right now, to power this, they're using four GPUs to power this system right now. So it's pretty crazy, but it's a good sign that they're working on this, and it's will trickle down eventually to consumer headsets.
I think that GPU point, though, Mike. I mean, I don't know if you remember, because I think you were there in person for the GeForce RTX unveiling. But honestly, their logic stack and how they're using deep learning to take AI and approximate scenes and guess, and the fact that they can guess so very well, this is a great application for it. The only thing that I'm wondering is physical moving parts in a headset, plus the latency of any motor that's required to make those fine adjustments, and any noise associated with that. Those things seem to be obstacles to me that, as a consumer product designer, you'd want to get rid of those pretty fast. Like, I mean, the plane moving, you have a very measurable time frame, and I'm sure this is a situation where it's kind of like, God damn it, Rowdy, why can't you be on here? Because you're our scientist, dude. But like the amount of time that it takes your eye to focus when you move from a deep scene to a forward scene I'm sure is a measurable, like, human variable that they know, or constant even that they know.
Like even as a with your native eyes, doing it, testing it's not instant. There is a slight delay.
So that's what they have playtime. They have actually a bit of play there to
catch up with that.
But also, from what we know at the F8 conference, where they showed off Half Dome, and they actually gave us an inside view of how the headset works with these movable displays. They were saying that they do move relatively quick. The latency is very low, but it's just a question of, like, I think they were worried about the noise it makes, but they were working on trying to make it as silent as possible, so you don't necessarily notice it.
So
I got some nervousness generally in chat, and I just wanted to pull that out from Twitch and YouTube. So, Crash said on YouTube, he said, anything that connects to the internet and uses eye tracking, I will not buy. What what other info are they getting? I think already we've kind of raised the whole point of like how much information our VR headset manufacturers collecting on us as we dance about our rooms, whatever we're doing.
So so just to cover this point quickly first is that this whole thing about deep focus, the blurring and de-blurring effect of VR using very focal displays, Oculus are actually opening it up to open source it completely. So they're giving it away for free for other people to use and utilize in very focal display headsets. That could be interesting.
On the other side, like, you're not gonna stop any company from getting that info, because I'm not sure if anyone has a phone here where you know that thing you call with, they can also just see what you're looking at on the screen, at least if you have one of the newer phones nowadays.
Well, it goes further than that. I mean, this goes all the way back to like Snowden and all the reports before it. I mean, literally right now, I have 10 cameras looking at me. I'm being recorded by my voice. Siri's listening to me, so Microsoft and Google.
Yeah, exactly. So boycotting like something like this later down the road when it's coming out, I don't think it really matters. It's the same with data, like keeping your stuff private. It's not possible. It's not. You can't do that.
The thing is, though, like the amount of money that Oculus have invested in doing all this research, like it's a dedicated research team for this alone. It's a lot of hours invested in this. So to give it away for free, I think is pretty interesting. But in terms of the sort of people talking in the chat about the eye tracking data, it's the same with Oculus right now. There is a lot of data that we send them that we sign up to in the small print in terms of like the way we move our arms, the way we interact with objects in game. We send a lot of that data to Oculus, and they could potentially use that. So I don't think you have much choice in terms of that data being protected. I think it's part of probably the agreement when you sign up.
Exactly.
To use a Rift,
and even if you wouldn't use a Rift, there's something else you have to use that you can't. Like in this world we're living in right now, there is no way you can escape this whole thing of them getting all your info you don't want them to have, basically.
Yeah, but I get people's concern about data, and I
usually always be questioned. I agree, always.
I think so, but the problem is, like, as a law-abiding citizen, I don't really care. I don't really care if someone knows that I watch, I binge watch Black Mirror on Netflix. I don't care that if someone at Oculus is knowing that I'm looking at this part of the display when I'm playing a game. I don't really care. I can understand why people do, and I get that, but I think that's kind of one of those things you need to just be aware of, that when you use a device like this, that you probably are giving away a lot of information about what you're using, when you're using it, and how much you're using it for. And what they're going to use that data for, I don't know, but it's one of those things. But certainly interesting tech, nevertheless. I think it's very exciting when we hear these kind of innovations. And I'd never even considered that blurring would be in a headset before, but when you kind of learn about it and you sort of read into why, it does make sense. And especially if it could eliminate motion sickness or essentially reduce it, then I think I welcome that for sure.
They're just and they're playing on nuances at this stage, because you've got people putting a headset on, you got them looking at a scene. The more comfort that you can give someone, I mean, even if this is a 5% difference, it still matters to them, because as the point that you made earlier, which I think is a really strong one, like the closer you can bring people to a comfortable experience where they're not having flaws, where they're not able to detect, for instance, the difference between that reality and the one that they're actually in, I think it's going to have a really interesting pivot point at some stage. At some stage, you will be holodecked. You will move from knowing and being able to discern one reality and another to actually being there. And when that transition happens, I'm not so sure I'll be wanting to play horror games anymore.
It's funny. I had this conversation with a couple of friends of mine, ex-colleagues of mine, actually. I met up with them for breakfast. Haven't seen them for months. They just wanted to know how I was getting on. And we were having this conversation. I said, when I'm old, I'm just going to be completely screwed, because I'm not going to be able to distinguish what's real and not anymore. It's going to be like kind of one of those Inception moments where I have to carry a totem in my pocket and spin it around to know whether I'm in the real world or not anymore, because it's going to get that realistic, I think, at some point in our lifetime.
Okay.
It's going to do some very interesting things to social dynamics. You know, it's going to be like, am I just totally plugged into this other world and forget about my real body and my real connections and my?
Am I in the Matrix? Is this a simulation right now?
It's going to simulate your past in a way, and it's like a dream that never ends, and it's on a loop to get to keep old people like, you know, in their little, I don't know, hamster balls. I don't know what they're going to do with old people, but.
So has anyone got any questions about half dome or deep focus in the chat? Because it's a lot to take in.
Well, we have Unchained a whole like discussion about, you know, how companies should get our data and how worried you should be about that. I mean, this is an ongoing conversation.
It's a big.
Let's see if I can.
I do think that identity theft, which is mentioned in chat, in addition to your digital fingerprint. In other words, governments or other bodies being able to track you. So even if Mike all of a sudden decides he wants to go off and live in a shack in Brazil, when he connects into the equivalent of the current Oasis, right, they'd be able to tell it's him because of how he moves his arms, because of all those things he does late at night, you know, all that stuff.
Well, as long as he doesn't mention his real name, he's fine.
Yeah.
That's not the, I mean, even now, right? Even now, automation, like there was a guy who faked his own death to get away from his wife or whatever, went off to South America, hid, and then Google face tracking picked him up in an image that was on Facebook, I think, and then his wife found out he was still alive, and then the whole thing kicked off. But
so you should get surgery, basically. That's what you're saying.
You shouldn't be a
facial surgery.
Sketchy person, you know. You know, you shouldn't be trying to do one on your wife, you know. That's the thing. Like,
but that's all well and good. Like your argument stacks up, Mike, as long as you believe in the society for which you plug into, right? If you have any doubts in the due purpose that the government upholds or the way they use your information, all that kind of stuff. And then if you throw into the mix the whole idea of AI kicking off, like proper, you know, artificial intelligence, what's that going to do with a hive of human information that's been gathered? You know, it's like, now we know perfectly how to exploit Mike.
Well, we know already, like, you know, from seeing those Boston Dynamics videos that we're kind of screwed anyway. So, you know.
Drink while you still can.
We might as well just welcome the robot overlords and, you know, a bit like that virtual reality experience, just rub butter into them when they want it and, you know, look after them.
I think as long as you're not a criminal, you should be fine. But the moment you get chased by a little doggy with like a turret on its back, yeah, then you're screwed. I don't know.
Watch that episode of Black Mirror called... it's called like Metal Dog or something like that. It's a great episode.
I mean, in my case, if they don't want to find me anymore, I need to take surgery. But in Mike's case, he just needs to buy a wig. That's all.
Yeah.
Shape up his beard again, because then he's like unrecognizable.
You wouldn't know who I was if I shaved this beard. You would never recognize me. Although there is pictures on the internet of me without a beard, so I might delete those. But anyway, we digress. Let's talk about our last topic, because otherwise we're going to skip another one. And I know we're running late, but we're going to have to squeeze this one in because I can't bear to roll it over another week. And this is Neurable. So this is also very interesting. It's probably going to trigger people about data and privacy, because this is going one step further and connecting your brain to a headset. So let's dive into this one. So this all started a couple of weeks back when I was looking at the new high-end Xtel headset, because they announced a partnership with Neurable. And Neurable is a Boston-based company, not far from Boston Dynamics. Coincidence? Well, I'm only joking. They're a brain company that are talking about interfacing your brain with the computer, and they call it BCI, so brain computer interface.
Oh my god.
Yeah, this is going to get super crazy. So this is a hardware and software communication system that enables a person to control computers with their mind, and also enables the gathering of data on the brain's activity through cerebral activity. So this is something like straight out of science fiction. It's crazy. The technology works by the user wearing a bunch of EEG, which stands for electroencephalography sensors around the head, which gathers data on the biophysiological activity from the brain, which is then analyzed by software. So you wear a little sort of head thing on your head and a VR headset. There's a bunch of sensors on there, gathers all the sort of brain data that's going on in your mind. So this means that, a bit like Magneto from X-Men, you can use your mind to pick up and throw objects in a virtual world. And that's exactly what they were demoing when they demoed this at some events recently. Yeah, pretty crazy, right? In other use cases, this technology is combined with eye tracking software and conclude how a user is feeling whilst looking at certain objects based on their brain activity. So, this is particularly useful for training scenarios in high consequence training simulations. So like pilot training, for example, data from the simulation can tell exactly where the pilot's looking in the simulation, and they can tell from the brain activity how stressed or maybe not that pilot is, how emotional they are, and basically train them accordingly to deal with those situations better maybe in the future.
It's an eye breathalyzer as well. You been drunk, Mr. Pilot? Well, guess what? We just detected it, and you are now banned for 6 months.
Yeah. So this is the kind of cool thing. Like, obviously, training in these high consequence training scenarios is great. Military applications as well, I'm sure. Yeah. How a soldier reacts to a terrorist threat or something like that, I'm sure is something that they're probably working on with this, because XTAL is mainly based at sort of enterprise applications, a bit like what we discussed last week with Deus and their sort of headset range. I'm sure military applications are in there as well. But this could be really interesting for gaming as well. We've talked about on the last couple of weeks of the show, AI characters in game, like that Starship Commander game with the voice controls. Imagine if that captain of the ship, that was giving you the advice, knew how stressed you were, could detect how stressed you were based on your brain activity and what you were looking at. Like, say if you were looking at, inappropriate parts of her and she picked up on it, and she knew that you were feeling a bit randy, maybe she could like pick you up on it. That would be kind of interesting, right? The kind of
That's
interesting
terrifying,
dynamic.
Mike.
It is
terrifying. Yeah, it's actually both in a horror situation, but also like just think about how different. This goes back to what like Musk was saying about the brain interface and the whole fact that like us using phones as our kind of storage device at the moment, and we're all androids at this stage. But also once you open that pipe between your brain and any kind of digital archive, like it's going like I just see it as a catalyst for human society where all of a sudden, like if I'm an architect, I want to build something, I've got it in my head, how quick can I dump it into it being its digital format? So you've actually got this like analog DNA and bionic interface dumping into digital, and once that flip switches, we're on a rocket ship. In all across all sectors. Like this is not just like
3D printed out of your head as well.
That would be so cool. You just think it, print it.
But this is the thing, and it's interesting that a lot of people brought it up in the chat about sort of data and everything else, because of course this technology could be used for good, training and potentially gaming, making fun, interesting scenarios in gaming. Like if you were in Skyrim, for example, and characters reacted to you based on like how they knew, how you were feeling at the time.
And also healthcare. Someone also mentioned like disabled people, like how they react to certain things, and you can do way more research on that side as well.
Well, it could actually not even just that. You could actually develop an interface. You could develop an interface that acts like a digital version of like a crutch. Because like today, if you have a physical ailment, you get something that helps prop you up or whatever. You could have something that interfaces with you. So say you had Tourette's. You could build something that would digitize and change your interface. But like think about Tourette's, but in a mental capacity. So if you have a mental disability, something that affects you and you react in a certain way, it could actually change that kind of filtration layer between you and the rest of the world to help you interface.
It can adapt to your brain, basically.
Yeah. And this is the thing. This company, Neurable, they're working with people with disabilities such as spinal cord injuries, stroke, neuromuscular disorders that have limited or no movement.
Exactly.
And they're using this technology to allow them to navigate UI using brain power alone. So a bit like Professor Stephen Hawking, the way he used to interact. That kind of technology, very similar, but just using sensors on your brain to control it alone. But like I said, it could be used, for a dark reason. In that, advertising, targeted advertising. Can you imagine, like you're in a game, and you're feeling hungry, for example. Next thing you know, an advert comes up because it knows you're hungry. Exactly. Or you're thirsty. Oh, you know what would be really great to quench your thirst right now? You have a nice Sprite or something,
Yuppie sauce.
Or even worse, right? It's not that. It would be, is this person susceptible to being hungry? what can we show him to make him hungry? Then sell him the thing. You know, that's
yeah.
the way advertisers think. They think, how can I get this dude who's not buying my product to, you know, anyway.
Yeah, but I think it's super interesting technology. You know, using your brain alone to control items in a VR environment sounds fascinating. I'd love to give this a go. I'm sure they're going to probably be at CES, so if you're going to go to CES, then this would probably be something you could check out there. But yeah, I'm really interested in this company, Neurable, and what they're doing. And I'd love to see more applications, particularly around people with disabilities, you know, and that are confined and restricted in their movement. How they use this technology to interact.
They are located in Europe, right? Are they?
This is Boston, Neurable. Xtal are based in Prague. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, they're going to be working together. So you know, this will be the headset combined with this technology for enterprise and business applications to develop all sorts of crazy stuff for the future. But I thought it was a fascinating thing to look into. I thought it'd be an interesting one to discuss on the show. And it's a shame Rowdy's not here, being the scientist. Yeah. I'm sure he'd have loads of stuff to say about this.
Rowdy is now sitting in his little dome in that wheelchair, you know, and just thinking all day, like, and then all the images come by, you know. How is this guy, Xavier? Yeah, he's like the new Xavier of this generation, you know. He's just sitting there thinking about everything.
You know, I think he wouldn't look too far off if we just shaved that beautiful hair of his off.
Well, yeah.
So let us know if you've got any questions in the chat. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We've been talking about loads of kind of crazy and interesting stuff. Obviously, the Oculus Half Dome and Deep Focus is kind of interesting, and this Neurable thing is super interesting as well, along with many games that we've discussed as well. But let me remind you that it's a weekly VR, AR, and MR talk show, live streamed every Saturday on YouTube, Facebook, and on Twitch. You can tune into the show live at 7 p.m. in Europe, 6 p.m. in the UK, and 12 midday in Central US. Or you can check out the audio version, which is available on iTunes, SoundCloud, on Anchor. If you're an audio listener of the show, or you just kind of catch up when we upload it on the channel, swing by to the live stream sometime, and you know, maybe we can read out some of your comments and interact with you a little bit more, like we do at the end of the show right now.
Okay. Fair enough.
I got a few here. So someone said, one second, let's see if I can find here. Will you do a VR meetup in Altspace or VR chat? And I know we bounced around the idea of kind of an after show.
We're getting faced by something we have not done, basically.
Yeah, we get asked this question a lot, and yeah, it's definitely something we want to do. We've talked about it behind the scenes as well as something we want to do. It's just finding the time really and getting us all together. You have to know that getting us together is actually really hard. And even when we're all in one single place, all at one time in California, we were only actually together for about half an hour, I think, because it's so difficult.
It was hard to get us together there. It was like all the time, like there was one person not there, and I was like, oh, but where did? But even in VR, like the first time, and also I think the last time we met up in VR all together, we played some kind of weird cowboy game, and I lost my hands. I couldn't do anything. So we tried. I think that one got us scared for life.
Yeah.
For some reason. But I agree, and maybe we should instead talk about it, just make it happen sometimes. Because there are some amazing places you can, you know, meet up. And
I'd love to meet for a gig, you know? Like we had that Image and Heap thing. I would absolutely love to do, like, if we saw like a music event coming up, like for me, I know Rowdy's a bit that way as well, inclined, but it like, you know, meet up with people kind of just before, experience the thing, and then chill out afterwards, where it's revolving around something like that. Then I think
maybe go to Rift Max Theater to watch your documentary about your life, and then after that we eat some popcorn together.
Documentary about my life.
But
funny experience one Christmas where we went to a rave in VR chat.
Oh yeah, that was amazing. That was
crazy. There was like 50 people just dancing.
That was next level. That was like some Ready Player One stuff.
It really was. Really was.
So another like quick news fact. This is like fresh. PewDiePie uploaded a new VR video. He did not play Beat Saber. People think he played, you know, the new Popstars song. He played more of Blades and Sorcery. I just checked it.
Okay.
But, yeah, PewDiePie, keep on playing VR.
Yeah, I think it's great, and also we know that Shroud was playing Contractors, I believe, with Lonely Viper. I think Lonely Viper saw that he was streaming and was like, yeah, I'm going to get on this, and jumped on his stream and started taking him out, which is kind of funny. He posted some clips on his Twitter as well if you want to check those out. But Viper is obviously amazing at shooters. He did super well. But I haven't checked out that game actually, Contractors. I don't know if you guys have checked that one
out. When I saw clips of it, I thought it was Firewall, and then I was like, that doesn't quite look like Firewall, but it's meant to be quite fun. So
yeah, a lot of people are regarding it as one of the better ones for sure.
One of the other questions was, are there any like hot tips on what to buy in the VR sales? And I've seen a few that are definitely on the store. I think the one that I spotted yesterday was Hellblade for like £12.50. For that price, great game. Feels very AAA, and I love those.
Version?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You get it free.
And then in addition to that, I'd say if you have friends, for like £2 or £3, it was like really cheap. There's a game called give me a minute to think about it. It was that zombie one, Dead Effect 2. Dead Effect 2. Just a couple of bucks. And for that one, just so you know, if you're like, oh yeah, let's play multiplayer, don't give up on it. You have to beat like the first couple of levels. It's like 2 or 3 levels. You unlock this middle globe in the middle with a long ship, which shows you all the levels, and then you can join and play together. But until you get to that point, the game is really obtuse. And then it's great. It's like freaking VR multiplayer, Left 4 Dead. It's bloody awesome.
The reason why Nathy is laughing so much is that we tried to record this game together, and it was absolute nightmare. It was a nightmare. We gave up in the end.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's a great looking game. It's a great looking game.
It is a great game. Yeah. It just takes some time to unlock the multiplayer. That's all.
Yeah. I don't know why they
thought I
developed
could
it
just
that
do
way.
it straight away, but that's not how it works.
No.
Very strange.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about it.
Excellent.
And yeah, just and end it up. I would say wrap it up.
Well, thank you very much, all of you that are watching live. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you joining live, by the way, and interacting in the chat. It's a lot of fun to read your comments and see what you get up to. I always sort of go through it after it's been sort of uploaded as well.
Yes.
It's really fun to read what you've been saying.
One question here from someone has jumped platforms and said, so Kelvin Cropley had said, I posted a question on the Facebook, not sure if you saw it yet. Just wonder if you have that up. I've only got the other two.
Let's see. It's always a bit of a delay on the Facebook one.
Yeah, the Facebook one's a little bit on the delay.
It's 84 years.
Yes, I can't see it anywhere. So ask him to put it there if he wants to.
Well, while you're figuring this out, don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't done that yet, and also click that bell notification. We're trying to get 1,000 subs at least. I know this sounds super sad from my side, but we are trying,
Yes.
But yeah, please do. And if you want to share the the podcast with other people that are also into VR, would be amazing. Introduce them, see if they like it. If not, fine, then you tried. But yeah, sharing this would be highly appreciated in any way. If you think someone will like this podcast, just send them a link. See what they think.
Sorry, he's typing back and forth, but he hasn't posted the question. So I'm sorry, but Kelvin, but I think you just missed the boat.
So I think I've got the question. He says, just curious, when will the Q&A be? Well, it's right now. And unfortunately, Calvin, that was your question. And you have to save it for next time for a proper one. But I appreciate you all dropping by. I hope you all have a great week in VR. Have a very Merry Christmas as well. I hope you all have a great Christmas period. Spend it with some friends and family. Convert them onto VR, and have a great time. And we'll be back on next week's show where we're going to be listing our best games of 2018. So make sure you stay tuned for that one. So have a great one. Thanks again, and bye-bye for now.
Cheers.
See you later.
Bye.